Welcome to the DocuSign Developer Conference. We are very excited to have you with us today. My name is Suman Seshadri, Lead Product Manager at DocuSign. In this session, we will go over all the fundamentals required to build your first integration. Let's take a look at the agenda. First, I'll give you an overview of the DocuSign APIs and SDKs. Next, we'll get you familiarized with key eSignature terminology. After that, we'll sign up and take a quick tour of the Developer Center, followed by a demo of the Quick Start. And finally, we'll open it up for Q&A. So let's get started. The DocuSign Developer Center is located at developers.docusign.com. Go ahead and feel free to sign up for a free developer account. Later in this session, you'll be using your account to try out some of the APIs. In today's digital world, APIs are of paramount importance. But what is an API? It's hard to keep up with so many acronyms, but for those who are not familiar, an API is an application programming interface. Technical jargon, but it is simply a way of communication between two systems. As you probably know, APIs are everywhere. From e-commerce websites to CRM systems to payment processors, all of them use APIs. And guess what? Agreements are everywhere too. Rental agreements, purchase terms and conditions, waiver forms, insurance contracts, the list is endless. Don't worry, the DocuSign Agreement Cloud is your one-stop shop to help you prepare, sign, act, and manage your agreements. The Agreement Cloud platform provides a number of APIs to help you transform how you do your business. You can automate, accelerate, and simplify the various stages of the agreement process using these APIs. Over the last 2 years, we have seen an increase of 80% in our API transactions alone. These APIs are highly secure and have a high availability of over 99.999%, and we constantly strive to be at 4 nines. And you know that that's impressive. So let's go ahead and take a look at what each of these APIs do, so that you can plan and implement the APIs that fit your business needs. The eSignature REST API is our most popular API. It uses the standard JSON request and response, and it has a lot of powerful features. You can either integrate directly with the API, or you can use the corresponding SDKs. You have SDKs available in 6 different languages, and you also have the iOS and Android mobile SDKs. eSignature with Salesforce is also a very popular solution. For more customizations to automate workflows, you can use the Apex toolkit. The Click API is excellent if you want to capture one-click consent to standard agreements such as purchase terms and conditions. If you're looking to expedite and streamline processes around digital signature in the real estate or mortgage verticals, be sure to check out the Rooms API. If your workflows require ID verification, your users can upload a government-issued ID for verification and later use the ID Evidence API to retrieve the previously stored verification status. The Notary API enables online remote notary and is currently available as a closed beta. The Admin API helps automate the management of users, accounts, and single sign-on and enables bulk operations. And lastly, moving on to the Monitor API, it can be used to detect unauthorized activity. You can also set up custom alerts in your dashboard, and you'll be able to respond quickly to verified threats. Now that you know what these APIs do, we'll take a quick look at the DocuSign terminology. As you read through the documentation, you will notice terminology like envelope, documents, and tabs. Well, the eSignature API objects are very similar to what one would expect in the real world. Imagine you had to physically mail somebody a document to get it signed. What would you do? You would get an envelope, you'd place the document inside it, and you would mail it to the person who needs to sign it, who is also known as the recipient of the envelope. If you need to do this over and over again, you would maintain a template or a blueprint, isn't it? And that's exactly the same kind of objects we have in the eSignature API. All we're doing here is to move from analog to digital. Just as you mail somebody a physical document, in the digital world, you can email or send an SMS with the link to the document. The recipient can then review and sign the document, and this is called remote signing. With this method, DocuSign authenticates the signer. There's another method called embedded signing, which is also very popular, where the signer reviews and signs the document in context of the web application. In this scenario, your application will authenticate the signer, and if needed, DocuSign can do further authentication. So net-net, a lot of it comes down to your use cases. As you can see, there are a number of features that you can use and customize based on your needs. More information about each of these features is available in our developer documentation. Speaking of documentation, we have 500 plus code examples in 9 different languages, several how-to guides, and a personalized quick start project. We also provide a number of tools such as the API Explorer, Postman Collection, API reference docs, SDK reference docs, sample apps, IDE extensions, and the API dashboard to help you with a fast and smooth integration. If you get stuck, check out Stack Overflow, where you have thousands of questions already answered. We have FAQ documentation as well. In addition to these, we routinely host API office hours, a live Q&A session. And finally, if you need further assistance, you can always open a support case. If you are an independent software vendor, aka ISV, who builds software products to license to other businesses, be sure to sign up for the partner program. If you need help, you can contact partners at DocuSign.com. And now, without further ado, let's go over and take a tour of the Developer Center. All right, so here we are at developers.DocuSign.com. So let's go ahead and sign up for a free developer account so that you can test to your heart's content. So click on Create Account on the top right. Fill out your first name, last name, your email address, your company name, and choose your country and click on Get Started. Once you do that, you'll be sent an email, so be sure to check your inbox and you see the account activation email. Click on the Activate button on your email and fill in your password. And press the Activate button. Now you can log in. So when you click on My Apps and Keys, it'll land you on the Settings tab, where you will see your user ID, account ID, and base URI. There you go. Here's your account information, your user ID, API account ID, and your base URI. Demo.DocuSign.net indicates that you're in your developer environment. Now press the Add Apps and Integration Key button, and you can give this an app name. I'm going to call it the first app. Press Create App, and you can see that your integration key is already created for you. So there are 3 types of authentication that you can choose. And for this particular app, I'm going to be going with the default, which is the authentication code grant. The authentication code grant is in general used for scenarios where the user is present and you have a secure server running. The implicit grant is used for user present scenarios where there is no secure server, and it's used for single page applications or mobile applications. And this is a setup for the JWT. And JWT is recommended for system integrations where the user is not present. And if you'd like to learn more about the authentication methods, you can click on the Learn More link available here. Next, let's go ahead and enter a redirect URL. You can pretty much enter anything you want for the test, but I'm going to go with examples.com/callback. And now hit the Save button. As you can see, your app name is available, your integration key is there, and we can even do a quick check by going here on the Actions button, and let's go and click Edit. You'll see your integration key and everything that you have entered has been saved, including the redirection URL. Fantastic. Now, let's go and take a look at our docs one more time. So the API menu lists a number of APIs, and on the right side you also have Platform 101 documentation. I highly recommend that you go and read them because they give you a lot of the fundamentals that I talked about earlier in this session. Now let's take a deeper look at the eSign REST API. So click on eSign REST API and land you on the overview page. If you scroll down on the overview page, you have a link to try out sample apps. So if you're interested, you can check those out in your own time. You have a number of sample apps for the various APIs that we have. For the Rooms API, Click API, one demonstrating Click and eSign, and the Loan Co is also a popular one. So you can click here and give this a try. But let's continue with our demo here. So you have the overview section, and once again in the eSignature 101, these are platform documentation, really good documentation around authentication and the concepts that you'd want to learn. The quick start is available here, and you'll be seeing a demo of this very shortly. You have a list of examples here in the how-to guides, which you can use later for your integrations. And here's the interesting part. You have the SDKs and tools section. You have a number of SDKs listed here. And down below, you have an API Explorer. And I'd like to give you a little overview of that now. Click on API Explorer and let's choose one of the APIs. So let's choose the accounts, and let's try to get our account information. It's a really cool tool and a lot of people love this. So the nice part about the API Explorer is that once you log in, it already does the authentication for you. So that's a huge advantage if you want to try out the products, try out the APIs without writing any code. So here the account ID is the only required parameter for this. So when you press the Get Response button, you can actually see that you are getting a response. And you can use several of these as inputs to other APIs wherever appropriate. So you can try out, perhaps let's try out one more. Maybe let's go to the users. Let's go to users and perhaps list. This is a get API as well. So I'm going to go to the API section. Once again, the account ID is only required parameter, and get response. You should be able to get your response. So that's the API Explorer. Do feel free to test it out. Another way of trying out our APIs is to download our Postman collection. For those who are not familiar, Postman is an excellent tool for testing with APIs. You can download and install Postman by going to www.postman.com. I already have Postman installed on my machine, so I'm going to go ahead and download the Postman collection. So for the first step, create your environment variables. So it's asking for your integration key and your secret, which you can get from the settings. So you go here, click on Edit, choose your integration key. You can just copy it and add your secret. Copy that as well and insert it here. That will create your environment variables, and you can now import a copy. It's going to ask for my workspace. As you can see, the collection has now been downloaded. So one important thing to note is that when you click on the drop down, you'll be able to see that the environment variables are already populated. So now let's go ahead and look at the next step. Step 3. We've already chosen the authentication code grant as our authentication mechanism for our app. So let's begin by copying this URL. And as you can see here, you'll need to replace your integration key as well as your redirect URL. So copy paste this here and go to your apps and keys page for the particular app. Copy your integration key. And copy your callback URL. And next, what you can do is you can paste it on the browser and get your code. Right, so this is our code. We will take this code and go to authentication code grant. In the body, you'll have to paste this code value. And please remember that this code is only valid for 2 minutes. And before it expires, you'll need to get the access token, which will last for about 30 minutes or so. But if your code expires, it means you need to redo step 3. Okay, so I got my access token. That's awesome. And I'm going to save this. And let's look at the environment variables. As you can see, the access token and the refresh token got populated. Next, what you can do is you go to get user info and send a request. So this step will populate a few more of the needed environment variables. After you do that, you can use the refresh access token to send a request and get the refresh token. All right, so let's look at this folder that gives you a lot of examples. The first one being create an envelope. So let's look at these variables, the path params. As you can see, you have all these values already available. You can see the account ID also available in the environment. As you can see, there are a few input parameters. The document as a base 64. For the base 64 value, you can use any online tool, or you can even use the API Explorer to get the base 64 value for your document. So I already have it handy, so I'm going to put it here. All right, I'm going to give an ID. You can put any dummy ID that you want. I'm going to say 123, and I'm going to fill in my email address. Fill out my name. And any recipient ID. I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4 for testing. All right. So now that we have filled out these parameters, let's send. Awesome. So we just created an envelope. So what this does is it sends an email out. And see, as you can see, the email is already here. And this is your envelope, and here's your document. And this was my test document that I sent out. There you go. You just sent your first envelope using Postman. And now let's go take a look at the Quick Start demo and learn what the Quick Start already does for you.
All right, demo time. So hi, everybody. Thanks for joining my demo. My name is Tony Mann. I'm the Director of Developer Content at DocuSign. And what I'm showing here is our Developer Center. Hopefully you've been there. If not, the URL is developers.docusign.com. And what I'm going to show you today is a demo on what we call Quick Start, which is created by my team, as well as the rest of the content that you see here in the Dev Center. And let's get started. First, I'm going to kind of show you the Quick Start. And then I'm going to walk you through what it did on the back end. All right, so first I'm going to go to eSignature REST API, and then I'm going to click Quick Start. Okay, so what Quick Start is basically a set of 4 actions. It'll prompt you along the way. In the old days, we used to call it a wizard, but basically you're going to be prompted to follow the steps. The first one being log in. And then, give me 1 second. Okay, so now I'm logged in, and you see the first step changed to show me that it's logged in. And by the way, if you don't have a developer account, please take a moment to do that. That way you can try this out, kick the tires, play around with our developer environment. And it's all free. So please do that. The next thing, excuse me, please, is to name your application. Now, as you saw, what Suman showed you just before, when she went to the apps and keys page, where you create an application with an integration key. An integration key is the thing that we need when you make an API call. You have to supply the integration key and all of the parameters associated with that. The name that we're talking about here is just simply a nice way to refer to the integration key and all the parameters. So name this anything you want. It will get created for you, and I'm going to show you how that works in a second. But basically, if you're creating, let's say, a proof of concept, you might want to call it POC, or an HR application, you might want to call it HR, something along those lines. But for now, we can just leave it as Quick Start App, and I'll click Next. And now you have a choice of 8 programming languages. So we've got Bash, C#, Java, Node.js, PHP, PowerShell, Python, and Ruby. And so 6 of these 8 use our SDKs. The ones that don't are Bash and PowerShell. So an SDK is just a nice wrapper around our APIs, in this case, eSignature API, so that you can make calls and uses the syntax in a language that you're already familiar with. And so for our demo today, I'm going to choose C# and click Next. Now, the thing that it's going to do here is, let me just describe a little bit. So I'm going to get a zipped download, but what happens is this is going to take some code examples that my team creates and we have in GitHub. In fact, we have more than 500 of them total, with all the languages and the APIs that we have and all the use cases. So we've got these code examples over here in GitHub. And then what's going to happen is, because I'm logged in, I'll scroll up here for a second. Because I'm logged in, it knows who I am. Instead of me having to create all of my integration key and the parameters associated with that manually, it's going to do it in my account on my behalf. And so it's going to take all of that, create it, extract that, put it into a configuration file that it gets from GitHub, zip all that up, and give it to you. So that was a lot of explanation to tell you what's happening behind the scenes, but it's important to know what's happening when you click download here. And in fact, it'll give you a status of each one of these steps. Now, the point in us doing this is we were asked by developers to come up with a quick and easy way for people to get started and actually just get to code very, very quickly. So in just a couple of minutes, you have the download, and it'll just run right away. So let me show you what was in the zip file. So now this is in C#. So any of you who are familiar with C#, you'll see that this is a solution with the solution file here, and there's a project with a bunch of code. I'm not going to go through all the code here today, but just know that the first time you run this, it can take a couple of minutes to actually resolve all the dependencies. And so therefore, instead of me taking a couple minutes now, I don't think you want to wait for those couple of minutes. I have loaded this earlier today. It's the same download as I just showed you. It's just already had the dependencies resolved. And by the way, that happens automatically. It just takes a couple minutes. So let me run it and show you what this is all about. Okay, so I run the quick start, and you'll see I'm in a local host session. So this is running on my local machine. Okay, and so it's running a specific example we call number one, which is request a signature through your app or embedded signing. So there's two main modes to request a signature. One is embedded, which means sometimes we refer to that as embedded signing ceremony. You might see that term every once in a while. But basically, the session takes place within your app or within your browser, as opposed to making a request to have a signature sent via email. So I can send somebody a request where, and I'm sure you've all seen this a million times, where you get a request via email, you open the link in email, and you go to the DocuSign website or use mobile app, et cetera, to sign. In this case, we're going to be signing within our app. And so this particular example needs two parameters. So one is the signer email and the signer name, which is demo account. And you get all of that from here because I'm in a logged in state. So let me just show you how it works. So it's running the demo. It's using the C# SDK to make API calls to do what you see here. Now, this is very familiar DocuSign functionality. So you might say, well, okay, isn't this just regular DocuSign? What's so special about this? But the reality is this happened because of some API calls. So this enables you to get started very quickly in coding your integrations. For your whatever use case you have, whatever industry, let's you start coding very quickly to send requests for signature and do a bunch of other functions just very, very quickly. So here I'm going to sign it and finish, and that's standard functionality. But the point that I'm really trying to make is that this was all done in code by using our APIs, and in this case, a C# SDK that wraps the API, the eSignature API. Let me show you one other feature of this quick start. If I click continue, I'll actually get a list of a bunch of examples that you can run. This one being the one we just ran. So if I click it again, you'll notice this is what I just showed. But if you scroll down, you get a whole list of possible examples that you can run. And now that Quick Start has created my integration key for me and set up OAuth and done all the things on the back end that need to be done to make a call, I can actually just try any of these. So for example, if I click list envelopes, if I click that and I continue, so what you'll see, this might look like an error condition, but the reality is this is just a JSON format of the envelopes that are in my account. It did exactly what I requested. But so let me stop this for a second and show you what happened on the back end. Okay, well, first of all, let me go back into the Developer Center. And up here in the right-hand corner, click my image or my logo and choose my apps and keys. And let me show you what happened. So what Suman just showed earlier was coming into this page and manually creating an app and key, which is important. You need to know how to do that. But what the Quick Start does is it does it for you on your behalf. So this is one that I created that I just showed you, but the Quick Start app that I didn't, that I just showed you how to create, and I didn't take the time to have it resolve all the dependencies. What's important here is that, let me go into this one and I'll show you what it created and then tie it in with the code. So here's the integration key that got created automatically for me with the app name that I gave it. It also set up authorization code grant, which is a type of OAuth that we support, and JWT, which is for service integrations. There's an RSA key pair that was set up. Here's the secret key that was set up. Now, this is obscured. You can't see the full key here. But let me show you one thing. Let me go back to my code. Now, again, this is C#, so the different languages are set up according to the best practices for those particular languages. For C#, the configuration file is called app settings. And if I look here under this DocuSign node, so client ID right here, you can see that this ends in Charlie 186 Bravo Echo. So if I go back to my apps and keys page, we can see that is the integration key right here. So again, the Quick Start created this on my behalf because I was logged in, configured all the parameters that it needed, put it all into this configuration file, which for C# is called appsettings.json. And even like the secret key, which ends in 3 Charlie 20 Echo. If I go back to my page here, Charlie 20 Echo. So there's my secret key that it created, but it put all of that stuff into the configuration file, which enabled it to run. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. Let me also show you a little bit about how the code works. Let me go into here. And I just showed you the first example, which has to do with embedded signing. And I'm going to set a breakpoint right here. And I'm going to run it again. And we'll show you how this works a little bit. Okay, so click submit. Okay, we see it hit the breakpoint. We can inspect some of the parameters, the signer email that came from that text box. There's a bunch of parameters that it gets either generated or it looked up from the configuration file. And let me step into it. And this is really sort of the meat of what makes this work. There's just a couple of steps. It's not much code at all. And I don't have the time here to explain every single line here, but basically we create an envelope definition object. And we've got content in our dev center that explains all this stuff. So if you wanted to go there to find out more information, but basically you're creating a token, you're passing it into the call along with all the required parameters, et cetera. So you can see it's stepping through. And so the advantage here, now I know I went through that quickly and I didn't explain every line of code. The advantage here in using the Quick Start is that if you're not sure how to code something with DocuSign, you can just run it here, step through the code, see how it works, copy and paste that into your own project, or even just use the project as is and modify around it, whatever makes sense for your scenario. But you can see just in just a couple of minutes, we get you started with a bunch of different code examples. And in a nutshell, that is what the Quick Start is all about. So I do have some time left. Let me show you a couple of other things if I could. Let me go back to the apps and keys page. So let me point out a couple of things that are of interest on this page. So first is down below, you have a couple of graphs. So one is it shows that there's two applications. Oops, sorry, clicked too many times there. So two applications, which we can see up above, the demo, which I just showed, and the Quick Start app, which I downloaded at the beginning of this presentation. We can see that there are 34 successful requests and 0 failed. That's simply because I'm not coding it manually. The Quick Start is already tested to work, so I wouldn't expect any failed requests. So you see them all be successful. Let me go under actions here under View API Dashboard for a given app or integration key. And if I do that, I will see, now you can see on the right-hand side here, a bunch of calls here. And this was since 10:26, that was today, maybe late last night or something when I was doing some tests. This is a new integration key that I created. So that's why you see the traffic here and nothing before that, or calls actually, not traffic per se. But then if you scroll down, you can see the individual calls. So the very last one that was made, because they're sorted with the most recent at the top, get envelopes API call for this particular integration key and the status of that call. If I wanted to find out more information about the call, I click view. And here's a bunch of stuff which you may or may not care about, but it does help you to troubleshoot. So if you're having any difficulties, you're not getting the expected result, perhaps you're, there's too many API calls and you're not sure why, and you want to see which ones are being called, those kinds of things. This API dashboard can really help you with that. So I'll just point out a couple of quick things. One is this environment demo. Demo is the same as developer environment, as opposed to production environment. So that just means this call was made in this demo environment. We've got account ID, integration key. We've covered some of these things already. The actual call, but here's the endpoint, the URL of the endpoint. And the thing I want to point out here is that even though the example I just showed you used the C# SDK, which is noted here under the user agent. So that just shows C#. Because it's a wrapper around the underlying API, you can see that here is the call that the method in the C# SDK called on your behalf. That's here. And then, request time, start end time. I mean, just some other additional metrics that you might be interested in, depending on what you're trying to look for, even the call duration. 90 milliseconds, et cetera. So that's a little bit about one of the tools we have called API Dashboard. And then go back to Dev Center. So that's really kind of all I wanted to point out in the demo. I'm happy to take your questions, but let me just also point one thing out here, that here's a link at the bottom called Share an Idea. And if you have any ideas of things you'd like to see, either in the Dev Center or DocuSign products, APIs, et cetera, click that. And this will ask you for your feedback in a variety of areas. So please do go ahead and do that if you have a moment and you have an idea that you'd like to express or a question, et cetera. So in a nutshell, that is the quick start. And so just kind of recapping what you saw. So quick start will, for after you're logged in, it'll create an app / integration key on your behalf in your account and configure the code that it gets from GitHub in a configuration file with all the stuff that it created on your behalf. Puts it in the configuration file so that it runs immediately. Just resolve a couple of dependencies, and that happens automatically when you run the project for the first time. And then it just runs the way I showed you. So what you might want to do is sign up for a developer account if you haven't already. Make sure that you go to Quick Start, try this out, but try some of the other examples too. We have some examples certainly for eSignature, but also some of our other APIs. And I really encourage you to just try it out, kick the tires, play with it, see how it might be able to integrate into your own apps. And we are here to help if you need anything. So with that, I think I finished a couple minutes early, but happy to take your questions.
All right. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Tony, for that. We do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
There's one important question. So they're asking for the difference between a developer account and a paid developer account. Just want to clarify that there is no paid developer account. The developer account is entirely free to use. So please feel free to test your APIs to your heart's content. The pricing plan comes in the picture when you're actually going live. So for testing purposes, you're good to go with the developer account, and feel free to test as much as you want. That was one question. And Tony, there's one more question, if you could take this one. So what's the difference between auth code grant and JWT authentication?
Sure. So at a high level, so auth code grant is, we recommend that you use that when there's somebody physically sitting at a machine and can log into the session. JWT is more of a system integration where something that might be running in the background, nightly process, something like that, where there's nobody sitting there that can log in physically at a machine. And so there are some nuances in there, but at a high level, that's basically how you determine. And actually, let me if I could take a quick second to show something. I'm still sharing my screen?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. If you come to our Developer Center, so under APIs and under Platform 101, under Authenticate here, we have this nice little decision tree that will help you to determine which, just answer a couple of questions, and it'll point you to the likely recommendation for the different types of OAuth that we support.
Wonderful. We're almost at time. We're going to be wrapping up. So thank you all so much for joining this session. And I also see that there are a few more questions. We'll be sure to get you the answers. But once again, thank you very much for joining this session. And be sure to join us at the AMA. That's going to happen in about 15 to 20 minutes, actually, at 11 a.m. Pacific. So see you all there.